Thunder Brainstorm. Junior is in a crowded gym chest pressing and Mandy and Mrs. Cook appear. Mandy says, 1, 2, ha ha ha, on Junior's reps. Transitioning into curling. Mrs. Cook says, I got to get it in. 2. The pros are ready for me. Mrs. Cook walks away. Mandy says, I'm ready. Mandy, Junior, and Mrs. Cook are standing outside of Holly Weeze's office. They knock. They each knock. The door opens. Holly Weeze says, what can I do for you? Mandy says, I want to join NBBL. Holly Weeze says, come on in. Mandy Jr. and Mrs. Cook walk in and Holly Weeze closes the door. Holly Weeze steps in front of Mandy and says, you have to pass the power test. Junior, Mandy, and Mrs. Cook walk out of the room and the door closes behind them. Junior says, sorry, Mandy, you're on our level. Mrs. Cook, Mandy, and Junior are in a ride. Mrs. Cook says, Mandy, you need a hat. Mandy says, thanks, Mom. Ride us. Take us to the best and top-rated hat store. The driver says, hat heaven or hat hell. Mandy says, hat heaven. Junior says, good choice. Junior's Mrs. Cook and Mandy walk into hat heaven. Our worker named Keith says, welcome to hat heaven, with every hat humanly possible. Junior says, my hat works with my imagination. His hat is a carrot that grows and she is perfect. Keith goes to speak and he's interrupted by a supermodel wearing a weed ball hat who says, you're in Starland, baby. Shine like the moon. And exits the store. Mandy Jr. and Mr. Cook are standing outside of the store. Mandy has a fancy moon hat on. Junior says, after you, Mandy. Mandy Jr. and Mrs. Cook hike up Mount 10 at a moderate pace. Junior goes inside his hat and retrieves 3 pairs of shades. Mr. Cook says, beautiful. Mandy and Junior say, I agree. Mandy says, gorgeous. Junior and Mr. Cook say, I agree. Junior says, sexy. Mandy, Junior, and Mr. Cook put their shades on. Mandy, Junior, and Mr. Cook walk on Sunshine Beach close to the water holding sand tools. Mandy, Junior, and Mr. Cook say, nice. Mandy, Junior, and Mr. Cook turn around and walk away from the water and sit down. Mandy draws a star in the sand. Junior draws a heart in the sand close to it. Mrs. Cook draws a 1 in the sand and close to it. Mandy, Junior, and Mrs. Cook raft into Wild's waterfall cave. Mandy says, isn't she gorgeous? Junior says, holy spit. Mrs. Cook says, she fine, she won, she a damn on time. Mandy, Junior, and Mrs. Cook stop on a path and run underneath the waterfall and dive in a lake. Mandy, Junior, and Mrs. Cook are at a zoo looking at gorillas. Junior goes in his hat and retrieves disguises. Mandy says, cool. Mandy, Junior, and Mrs. Cook put on their disguise and walk into the gorilla exhibit. Mrs. Cook grabs the gorilla and says, got her. Junior says, run. Mrs. Cook runs away with the gorilla and Mandy Jr. and Mandy and Junior follow behind. Mandy Jr. and Mrs. Cook and Pet Gorilla are in a ride and Pet Gorilla is eating Mrs. Cook's hat. Mandy says, ride, take us to Starland Mansions. The driver says, Starland Mansions it is. Our folks were in a rich residential area. The driver stops at the first mansion. Mandy Jr., Mrs. Cook, and Pet Gorilla exit the SUV with Mrs. Cook taking her hat and enter the empty mansion. Mandy says, Junior. Junior goes in his hat and retrieves the piano and proceeds to furnish the mansion. Mrs. Cook says, great job. Mandy Jr. and Mrs. Cook and Pet Gorilla are in the kitchen dancing to upbeat music on beat and eating a mix of food like starving beasts. Mandy Jr., Mrs. Cook and Pet Gorilla are in the master bedroom tearing up everything to music. Pet Gorilla, wearing a football helmet, is standing outside of the studio in the mansion. Mandy Jr. and Mrs. Cook are in the studio performing. Mrs. Cook comes out of the booth and brags to Mandy's camera, and Junior hypes her up. Junior goes in his hat, retrieves dollar sign chains, and hands them out to Mrs. Cook and Mandy. Mandy Jr. and Mrs. Cook and Pet Gorilla are sitting front row of floor department 2, Inventions of One Digital. Holly Weeze says, inventions include the numerator, the virtual personality headset, the My Target, the table sync, the case glasses, the wrist mirror, the nose bottle, the infoscope, the life scope, and the monitor mask. The descriptions are as follows. The numerator is a disc-shaped device that generates numbers and letters. You set the digits, set the symbol, and go auto or manual. The virtual personality headset, a device featuring a ghost face design on top, speaker, cam, and mic in the lower center. screen underneath, and earpiece on the side. Included is the virtual personality headset remote app, featuring the mic the ghost button built to respond to users, the calm button which produces speech to other virtual personalities, and the record button recording video and audio from the headset. The mind target an exercise machine designed to hold a detachable punching bag for a strike and reset. The table sync. This shaped device that generates a code in the center of the disk of a possible six numbers, possible six colors, and possible six shapes. Codes are slotted around the center and left and right buttons. Get the matching code to the answer slot. The case glasses that open for alternative lenses. The wrist mirror, a fashion mirror worn on your wrist. The nose bottle, a device featuring a headband with an aroma control center, aroma cartridges, and pad, and nose buds. The infoscope, a magnifying glass shaped device that identifies your surroundings. The light scope, a handheld device that senses like a human. And the monitor mask, a mask device with a monitor and headphones. Holly Weeds hits a button on his shirt that triggers the gunshot effect. The curtains drop and the crowd screams. Mandy Jr. and Mrs. Cook are shopping for one digital, maximizing their priority to get every item as pet gorilla follows. Junior is in his bedroom writing with a carrot, talking to me with a magic voice. I'm attracted to you with no choice. Your flavors don't stop. My mouth is moist. Lift me up, pick me up with a hoist. I love God and you look like nature. Questions, where will I date and will I mate her? With all love, I know I will hate her. If that's all it is, I will take her.